Hi, this is Randy Kirk, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the possible numbers for next year, because at this point, Tesla is going to sell every car they can make. I'm not going to even go into that today. I know that yesterday I spent some time talking about the possible production numbers, but on Twitter and on YouTube and other places, there's just an awful lot of pundits out there, a lot of folks like me and folks that are theoretically more sophisticated than I am that are just all over the place with regard to the production numbers for next year, and it blows my mind. So I want to talk about some of my biases. I want to talk about some of my projection methods, and I want to talk about why the rest of these people, for the most part, are foolish. So without picking any names, you choose your own names, but let's start with the biases. By the way, if you like this kind of content and you want more of it, please subscribe. If you like it, please like. I've done a kind of a more elaborate, detailed projection of the numbers for the next 2 years on Patreon. So if you're interested, you could join Patreon. I'm not necessarily just following the lead of other folks that use Patreon by producing videos and giving the Patreon members some advanced looks at those videos and or putting up numbers that other people don't get to see. My main reason for the Patreon is so that we can mastermind and spitball about the future to help us in the production of my next book, The Elon Musk Magic. So with that said, join Patreon. The information's in the description below. It's $5 a month. Most of you can afford it. Okay, let's talk about my biases. I ran a manufacturing plant for 29 years, my plastics manufacturing business. It was not huge, about 100 employees. And then prior to that, I was in import-export, I was in distribution. My entire life, I have been spending with spreadsheets, even before there were spreadsheets on computer systems. I've been using spreadsheets to try to determine what my future numbers are going to look like. Now, in my plastics manufacturing business or in those import and distribution businesses, I was always wrong. I mean, I went to a lot of trouble. I looked customer by customer. I looked territory by territory. I looked product by product. And I took into consideration possible price deviations. I looked at the markets. What's happening in Europe versus what's happening in the United States, because I was selling on 4 continents. I went into the nitty-gritty details and tried to determine what would my numbers be in the next 12 months or the next 24 months, usually projecting out 2 or 3 years. I was always wrong. Not by a little, but by a lot. Sometimes by so much that it was embarrassing. So am I saying this so that you'll completely disregard all of the things I'm going to say about Tesla's production future in the next year? No, I'm saying it because all of the folks that are telling you that they're going down into the nitty-gritty and they're taking this into consideration, all these things that I took into consideration and more, they don't even have those numbers, okay? They don't have any of those numbers. They don't have any more numbers than you can get or I can get. We have the things that Tesla has said as a company. We have the things that Elon has said as a company. We have historical figures to look back and see what history is telling us. We have estimates that we can make based on rumors and speculation that people are suggesting that sometimes have some credibility. Maybe they've had credibility in the past, so they have credibility in the future. We don't know what Tesla's plan is with regard to adding lines. We don't know what Tesla's plans are with regard to changing and switching over one line to another line. We don't know what Tesla's even doing with semi-trucks right now. Are they still hand building in Reno? Do they have a line set up in Reno or in Austin? Are they planning to set up a line later this year? We have no idea. We have no idea when the Cybertrucks will start being spit out, and we have no idea whether the ramp will be easier or harder than the previous ramps of cars. But we can look at the previous ramps of cars and speculate about the ramp of Cybertruck. We can look at the previous ramps of cars and speculate about the ramp of semi-trucks. We can speculate about the continuing ramps of Model Ys in Austin and in Berlin. We can contemplate and think about, will they start making 3s in Berlin this year? We don't know. We don't know whether the Shanghai shutdown, or the new information that just came out a couple of days ago that maybe Shanghai and Tesla are arguing about the expansion there. We don't know if that's true. We don't know if it's fake news. We don't know if it's really slowed anything down. We don't know if it'll slow things down for a week or a year. In Berlin, we don't know about phase 2. We know that they've broken ground, but will they be able to build more than 500,000 cars out of phase 1? We don't know. What about Austin? We don't know much. So when all these other folks are speculating that it's only going to be 1.9 million vehicles next year, take it with a grain of salt. People that are saying it's going to be 2 or 2.1 million, their numbers are no better than my numbers, no better than your numbers. You can get the same numbers. It's all out there. Okay. What I'm going to do today is, once again, I'm going to use a couple of different methods of analysis. Okay. It all comes down to analysis because we all have the same numbers. So what's my analysis? Who do I trust? Do I trust Elon? Do I trust Tesla? Do I trust history? How much history can I impose on the future? My number is still 2.5 or 2.65 if everything really goes well. The difference between 2.5 and 2.65 is nothing goes wrong next year. No interruptions by disease or war or supply chain problems that come out of the blue, or governmental issues that cause problems in a specific region. So if pretty much we have a solid year, everything just kind of goes about as good as it could, we could get even more than 2.65 million cars produced and shipped next year. More than likely, the number is going to be around 2.5, 2.55, because we assume that there will be surprises, okay? Some people say it should be 15%. I think that's a huge, I mean, it's great for conservative analysis. And if you want to use 15% off of my 2.65 number, that is probably fine. So take 350,000 off and you're at 2.3, which is my bear case number. That's my worst case number. So I've explained over the last couple of days how I was getting to the number that I've been talking about. If you want to go back and look at the video, that's probably the best way to get the details on the methods I was talking about yesterday, I guess was the primary video I put up. But if you want to take a look at, I'm going to talk to you now about a couple of other methods that we can get to the same number. So I went back and I looked, and it turns out that, well, first of all, we'll start with Tesla made 440,000 units, manufactured 440,000 units in Q4. Now, in Q1, there is a shutdown in Shanghai for a week for Chinese New Year, and maybe we're talking about a little more than a week of days that are not going to be producing in January. Taking that into consideration, it is impossible for me to see how they could do less than 500,000 cars in January, because we have the ramp up in Austin, we have the ramp up in Berlin. We're probably ramping somewhat in Fremont, because that's why they brought the folks in from Shanghai to help them increase the production in Fremont. So 500,000 seems to me to be a no-brainer for January. I'm sorry, for first quarter. So let's start with that. Okay. Normally, based on history, Tesla increases about 50% in total production between January and, between first quarter and fourth quarter. So keeping the figures round, that would mean that they maybe make 750,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter. Now we need to have that be a ramp. I don't know how it's going to ramp. You don't know how it's going to ramp. None of these other folks know how it's going to ramp. I'm just going to kind of say it's a linear ramp. And so let's say 500 in Q1, 575 in the second quarter, 650 in the third quarter, 750 in the fourth quarter, which is usually the quarter they're really trying to, get out as much as they possibly can. Now then you have to add in some cyber and some semi. So let's say, call that, 25,000 more. So now you've got your 2.5 million. Okay, 2.4, 2.7, 2.8. I'm sorry, what I said, I'm sorry, 2.475 for all the other vehicles, and then add in the 25,000. you get it to 2.5 million. I'm sorry, I kind of blew all those numbers. Okay. So that's another way to get to the number. Historically, that has been how quickly they've ramped. They have the factories in place, they have the lines in place, they have the production in place, and they have a history of producing. So taking historical information and plugging it in is a wise way to do analysis. If you don't agree with me, put it in the comments below. Maybe that's a stupid way to do analysis, but I'm assuming if you got all the production in place, then you're probably going to ramp at about the same rate that you have in the past. Okay. Now let's break it down just a little bit. So we could look at the Model Y ramps in Austin and Berlin to see what's going to happen there. I'm taking Elon's statement to heart that he's going to build 75,000 in Austin in the first quarter. He may not. Maybe it's only 70, maybe it's only 65, but they're already darn close to a number that would get them there now. And they're going to continue to build more and more based on history. Again, using historical analysis, they would continue to ramp. So if we take the 75,000 in the first quarter number and we look at previous ramps, it turns out that Austin should be at 500,000 run rate by the end of the year. All you have to do is go ahead and look back at the history. You'll see that if 75,000 in the first quarter, they should be at least the 175,000 level by the end of the year. So they should be shooting that 500,000 annual. I just did that wrong again. I am so sorry. They should be at 135,000 per quarter or 500,000 run rate. Am I still doing the math wrong? I'm going to maybe cut all that out. Maybe I have to go back and cut this out. So 500,000 divided by 4, 125,000 run rate by the end of the year. Whew, man, don't know why I do so. My ears are even turning red from all that embarrassing comment. All right, 125,000 run quarterly by the end of the year. You can again divide that up linearly, 75, 85, 95. Maybe they make 110, 115, 20, 25 for the Fed. That gives us my 350,000 number that I've been using all along. Austin might drop just a little bit behind that. So Austin might not make quite 350,000, but maybe, I'm sorry, Berlin, maybe Austin makes more, maybe Berlin makes less. I'm just figuring 350 each. So that gives us our 700,000, which I've been talking about all along. Shanghai has been at a consistent rate. They were at a consistent rate for over 2 months of 3,000 cars per day. Almost 3 months, they were going 3,000 cars per day. So 3 times 365 is 1 million cars. And I think I did the math right on that one. I have to assume that they're going to continue to be able to do that in 2023, the entire year, and also continue to ramp up from there. So my number has been and continues to be 1.1 million for Shanghai. Now then, there it is. History, capacity, facilities in place, stuff already happening. I don't know how to come up with less than 1.3, even with a 15% takeoff for all kinds of problems. I think it's going to be 2.5 as a very solid middle ground. And if everything goes great, it could be 2.65. Where am I getting this wrong? I'd love to know what you think if I'm completely blowing it here. And if you like this kind of content, remember to like and share and blah, blah, tell other people about it. We are going to have a bonanza, a mind-breaking, and I'm not probably, well, maybe I'm going to do a stock price analysis. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen now. Well, I've done my catalyst analysis. Maybe I'll do a new catalyst analysis before the upcoming earnings call. That might be fun. But typically, I'm not that interested in what's going to happen next week or next month, and I'm usually wrong anyway. But maybe we'll do a catalyst analysis, because when the street gets that the number is really going to be between 2.3 and 2.65 next year, that should impact the stock price. Wouldn't you think? It's been great talking to you.